Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Prado. I am the head of the finance group here at Nova, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our home, which we open the doors for your CMVM and all of these initiatives that are very important to us, that are at the heart of what finance is about. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this Investor Week that has been organized by CMVM and that we have the pleasure to host. And here we gather not just as individuals, but as part of a broader community in which we share a vision of financial empowerment, knowledge, and investment literacy. And that is effectively at the heart of what our research and our teaching tries to embrace as we sort of dedicate that towards our students. So today you will be engaging in a series of insightful discussions and sessions led by sort of the brightest minds in the financial industry. So I encourage you to take advantage of that in every way possible. So in an era in which technological advancements are rapid and ever evolving, so staying informed is our most important advantage. So, and such an advantage that it becomes almost a necessity. Okay? And this is why these types of events are very important, in which we can embrace sort of knowledge and information sharing to its maximum capacity. So we believe that everyone, regardless of their backgrounds or financial expertise, deserves access to resources and guidance and in terms of how to make the most appropriate financial decisions. Okay? That is what this event and CMVM and Nova stand for. So happy to have you all here. I want to sort of conclude with expressing my gratitude to all the partners, CMVM in particular, and speakers who are generous enough to come here and dedicate their time and expertise to this cause. Your support is very valuable, and truly we are grateful to have you here and present throughout the day. I also encourage all participants to actively engage in the sessions, take the most advantage out of all these opportunities that are given to you, ask questions, share your insights, and hopefully you'll leave today with much more empowerment in terms of financial literacy. So thank you, particularly CMVM, for joining us today and dedicating to the cause of financial literacy. And Investor Week is what it stands for, and hope you all have a very productive and inspiring day today. And then I pass on to Maria João from CMVM.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Hello, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here. I'm Maria João Teixeira from CMVM. I'm heading the Investor Department and the Market Conduct Supervision. So it is great to be here with you in Nova. And in fact, for this session, that will highlight investment in capital markets. This session is organized by CMVM and also in partnership with Nova, which is great because we share some concerns about financial education, so it's a good match that we can be here together. And in fact, it's a special occasion for us because we were here 5 years ago. I know you are celebrating now the 5th year anniversary of the campus. We were one of the first entities to make an event, organize an event at this campus, and it was again for the World Investor Week. Because in fact, World Investor Week this year is the 7th year of this celebration. World Investor Week is an initiative from IOSCO. IOSCO is an organization, international organization that joins together regulators and supervisors of capital markets, which CMVM is one of them. So we are very pleased to celebrate and organize every year on the first week of October, around these dates, on the first week of October, with many other countries. In fact, more than 100 countries are celebrating the World Investor Week. And throughout this week, we try to pass messages to investors and help investors in making their investments. So we provide some initiatives in terms of financial education. This is one of them. And coming to the CMVM again, And the purpose of CMVM, one big mission of CMVM is to protect investors and also to develop markets. But the protection of investors is a key issue that we'll be trying to help with in this session. So in the responsibility that we have towards investors, we have twofold approaches. One is supervising the entities that provide investment services, and that's one role of CMVM. And the other one is really to provide financial education and contents that we proactively tend to give to investors through our site or in many other ways, such as the Investor Week. Okay, so in today's session, we will cover two main topics. We'll have first a keynote speaker that you'll see in very soon after me. And we'd like to cover how to save and invest and to help investors to know what they should when they are investing. And also, on the second part of this session, we'll be covering the financing of companies, namely of football entities. That's one thing that we'd like to cover. So we would like, at the end of this session, it would be great if at the end of this session we could say that we have helped new and young investors, as you, to help them what they should consider when they invest, and help them on the steps that they should take when they do that. And also, on the other hand, they could understand better what is the role of CMVM that I'm sure not many of you know a lot about. So this would be two main objectives that we would like to have covered here today. So I finish by thanking everyone that has prepared this session and also the ones that are participating in it, and especially Nova, its professors, the communication team, the clubs, the students' associations. Without them, this would not be possible. So very special thank you to all of them. And just to finish and just to conclude, just to say that we have other initiatives under the World Investor Week. So you can go to the site of CMVM, www.smeportugal.pt, and you will see all the initiatives we have every day. Most of them you can follow through the web in YouTube. So it will be great if you can also see some other ones. Thank you very much, and have a good session.
Boa tarde a todos. Vou falar em português. Não sei se há aqui alguém em inglês que ela vai perder aqui um bocadinho da minha apresentação, mas para as coisas fluírem melhor, é importante que eu fale português. Em primeiro lugar, dizer-vos que agradecer o convite por parte da CMVM. Para mim é um gosto, claramente, estar aqui. É também um gosto regressar a uma universidade que foi a minha, não neste campus fantástico, porque se tivesse feito aqui a minha licenciatura, naturalmente, se calhar não saía daqui tão cedo, ficaria aqui mais alguns anos, mas sem dúvida que é um campus magnífico e é com certeza um gosto para mim estar aqui e poder falar convosco sobre algumas das coisas que vou fazendo, alguma experiência que também tenho e algo que eu acho que é fundamental para vocês. Dito isto, eu queria só fazer primeiro uma pergunta. Daqui, quem é que já investiu ou quem é que investe regularmente? Estão envergonhados? Não. E vocês investem em quê? Em que ativos? Ações, obrigações? Ok. Eu já vos pergunto mais à frente, já vos faço umas perguntas adicionais. Antes de começar a minha apresentação, eu gostava de me apresentar. Eu sou o Diogo Luís, consultor financeiro, economista, comentador do CNN, fui jogador profissional de futebol durante muitos anos. Terminei a minha carreira aos 28 anos porque eu entendia que o caminho já estava traçado, já não ia evoluir muito mais, então optei por desenvolver outra área, aquela área que o curso me permitia desenvolver, que as competências que eu fui ganhando. Tenho duas paixões profissionais, tenho o desporto, continuo a ter uma paixão do desporto porque sou comentador de desporto na CNN e também tenho uma grande paixão pelos mercados financeiros. As duas, por incrível que pareça, cruzam-se muito. Há muita incerteza nos mercados financeiros, há muita incerteza no futebol. Há muita volatilidade nos mercados financeiros, há muita volatilidade no futebol. De um dia é uma coisa, no dia a seguir já é outra. O poder da decisão. Nós dentro do relevado temos de tomar uma decisão e aquela decisão é em fração de segundos. Nós no investimento também temos que tomar decisões. Quanto mais conhecimento tivermos, quanto mais treino no futebol tivermos, melhor a decisão será. Quanto mais conhecimento tivermos nos mercados financeiros, melhor a decisão será. Portanto, há aqui muitas parecenças, ao contrário do que as pessoas possam pensar, entre desporto e entre mercados financeiros, e entre o desporto e vida e muitas situações. Eu gostava, antes de começar com as minhas imagens, eu sei que isto é um tema sério, mas eu não gosto que seja um tema chato. Porque acho que muitas das vezes, muitas pessoas não pegam neste tema desde cedo, porque entendem que não têm capacidade para o fazer. Porque dizem que é demasiado complexo. E eu acho que o investimento não é complexo. O investimento é como tudo. Existe trabalho, existe dedicação. E, portanto, desse ponto de vista, eu acho que é fundamental esclarecer essa questão. Relativamente à literacia financeira, dar-vos os parabéns. Eu sei que vocês têm um programa de literacia financeira que eu acho que é fundamental, por dois campos. Primeiro, pela vertente pessoal, porque quanto mais cedo vocês tomarem contato com a literacia financeira, melhor vai ser a vossa vida, e acreditem nisso. Eu já vos vou dar um exemplo mais à frente. E depois também na sociedade. Nós, hoje em dia, cada vez vivemos numa sociedade cada vez mais rápida, diria eu. Há 20 anos o mundo não era global, quando eu tirei o meu curso. Neste momento o mundo é completamente global. Um clique hoje chega à China numa fração de segundo. E, portanto, desse ponto de vista, chegamos a um ponto em que, através das redes sociais, às vezes mais vale parecer do que ser. E eu acho que vocês, que são o futuro, se calhar presente e futuro, vocês têm uma responsabilidade adicional no crescimento e no desenvolvimento da sociedade. E uma sociedade que vai perdendo de valores é uma sociedade que fica cada vez mais fraca. E, portanto, vocês, sem dúvida, olhando para aquilo que se está a passar, eu acho que a literacia financeira pode-vos ajudar. Porquê? Porque podem ser muito mais exigentes. E vocês, particularmente, porque vocês têm competências dentro da área económica, aquilo que a maior parte das pessoas não tem. Porque se há decisões que são tomadas pelo governo, se há assuntos que são debatidos na praça pública, muitos deles não são esmiuçados como deviam ser. Porquê? Porque o povo não é exigente. E vocês, tendo essas competências, têm essa responsabilidade adicional, nunca se esqueçam. Porque vocês estão na área da economia e a área da economia dá-vos a capacidade de analisar devidamente os dados, sair fora da caixa, questionar coisas, e vocês, para crescerem, para se desenvolverem em tudo, na vida, nos investimentos, vocês têm que sempre questionar as coisas. Não se deixem na vossa zona de conforto. Se vocês ficam na vossa zona de conforto, não vão evoluir e não vão fazer com que a sociedade evolua. Outro ponto importante, hoje em dia os jovens, eu tenho filhos, hoje está cá uma filha minha também que veio comigo, pensam muito em si próprios. Eu acho que é importante nós pensarmos em nós próprios, mas nós não vivemos num mundo isolado. E, portanto, temos que ter sempre a tal consciência da sociedade que eu acho que é fundamental. Eu quis fazer este apanhado antes, abrir este parênteses, porque acho que é fundamental nós percebemos que somos importantes para o desenvolvimento, efetivamente, da sociedade, para o caminho que temos que tomar, porque a minha opinião, sou, se calhar, um contestatário, eu acho que o caminho que estamos a tomar não é o correto. Então temos que ser muito mais exigentes, primeiro connosco próprios e depois com todos os outros. E nesse ponto, gostava também de tocar aqui alguns valores que, mais uma vez, acho que se estão a perder. E a minha filha está ali e ela é testemunha. Estou sempre a dizer aos meus filhos que eles têm que assumir as suas responsabilidades. E eu acho que na nossa sociedade é algo que está a desaparecer. Ou seja, acontece alguma coisa e a responsabilidade não é nossa. Então, tentamos arranjar sempre um bode expiatório. No investimento, é fundamental que nós consigamos assumir as nossas responsabilidades. Porque as decisões vão ser nossas. Para o bem ou para o mal, se alguém nos disser para comprar uma coisa e nós comprarmos, vai ser o nosso património que está em causa. Portanto, a responsabilidade não vai ser de outra pessoa, vai ser nossa. E vocês só conseguem ter uma responsabilidade nos vossos atos se tiverem competências e se desenvolverem conhecimentos. Portanto, é fundamental vocês cada vez mais procurarem conhecimentos, desenvolverem, porque o facto de estarem aqui numa universidade de economia, de gestão, dão-vos competências para vocês raciocinarem, para vocês irem mais além, mas não vos dão o conhecimento todo. Vocês constantemente estão a desenvolver conhecimento. Ao longo da vossa vida, inclusivamente nós, os mais velhos, os mais dinossauros, digamos assim, estamos constantemente também a desenvolver competências, a desenvolver conhecimentos e a crescer. Relativamente a esta imagem, eu acho uma imagem muito sui generis, é uma imagem interessante. Porquê? Porque ao longo da nossa vida nós temos vários caminhos. Eu estou a transformar um investimento um bocadinho de uma forma mais abrangente. O investimento não é só investimento, o investimento tem muitas particularidades similares, por exemplo, ao nosso trajeto da vida. Nós, por exemplo, vocês saem da universidade e pensam, tem 4 portas, tem 4 caminhos, qual é o caminho que eu vou seguir? Primeiro, vocês têm que saber fundamentar o vosso caminho. E aí vou tocar no investimento. Vocês têm muitas opções de investimento na vossa vida. O investimento é fantástico, não são só os ativos portugueses, há ativos internacionais, há na China, há nos Estados Unidos. Para que lado é que vocês vão? Primeiro, vocês têm que perceber qual é o motivo do vosso investimento. É para quê? O que é que aquilo vai acrescentar à vossa vida? Se não acrescentar nada, não vale a pena investir. Se acrescentar, vocês têm que tomar decisões. E em função das vossas decisões, vocês têm que escolher um caminho. E deixem-me dizer uma coisa. Por muito que vocês controlem o processo todo de investimento, por muito que vocês controlem as empresas todas que vocês vão investir, porque vocês têm a capacidade de ler balanços, por muito que vocês controlem tudo, há sempre uma parte que vocês não vão controlar. E no limite, a vossa tese de investimento pode estar perfeita. E vocês entram naquela porta do meio. E vocês sabem, este vai ser sucesso. E no limite pode correr mal. É nos investimentos, como é na vida. Quando vocês tomam uma decisão de ir para trabalhar para uma empresa, aparentemente aquilo vai tudo certo. Mas depois há sempre algo que nós não controlamos, que é o contexto. E há os contextos pessoais e há os contextos da sociedade que nós deixamos de controlar por um ou outro motivo. Porque são incertos. E por isso é que eu vos digo que isto tem muito a ver também com a vertente, por exemplo, do futebol. No futebol nós podemos controlar o máximo do nosso treino e do nosso trabalho, mas depois vamos para dentro do relevado e de repente há um jogador que é expulso aos 10 minutos, que é algo que não está preparado, ou no limite não estava planeado. E, portanto, desse ponto de vista, é fundamental vocês saberem fundamentar sempre as vossas decisões, desenvolverem as vossas competências, não se percam, sejam focados, porque acreditem que no futuro as coisas irão correr bem. E é preciso também a percepção de que vão errar muitas vezes. Quem está aqui, os mais velhos, com certeza já erraram, eu já errei muitas vezes, continuo a errar, infelizmente, mas a verdade é que, ou felizmente, porque é no erro que nós também crescemos. Agora, não devemos nunca desistir, e eu, quando falar do processo de investimento, vou-vos dar umas dicas sobre isto. Outro ponto que eu gostava, que se estivesse do vosso lado, se o Diogo ou eu estivesse aí, eu daria-lhe alguns conselhos. O primeiro conselho é, Diogo, começa já a pensar em investimento hoje, não deixe para amanhã. Quanto mais cedo, melhor. O segundo conselho que eu daria ao Diogo é, Diogo, a decisão tem que ser sempre tua, tens de pensar sempre pela tua cabeça, não podes pensar pela cabeça dos outros. Diogo, terceiro ponto, não penses que sabes tudo. Esta, ainda hoje, me digo a mim mesmo, muitas vezes, porque efetivamente é um bom conselho. Quarto conselho, os investimentos não têm a ver com sorte ou azar. A partir do momento em que vocês falham alguma coisa e justificam essa falha pela sorte ou pelo azar, vocês não estão a investir. Vocês estão a jogar casino. O investimento não é casino. O investimento é um processo que demora tempo e que, no limite, traz os seus frutos. Mas é algo que vocês têm que estar preparados para percorrer. Porque se vocês entendem que vão investir e amanhã querem ganhar dinheiro, e por isso é que eu perguntei aqui antes de começar a sessão, quem é que investiu? Por exemplo, quais foram as tuas expectativas de investimento quando investes?
Depende, obviamente, do prazo temporal do investimento que quero fazer. Se quero uma coisa, de certo modo, uma ação mais volátil, normalmente não ter um prazo temporal muito extenso, mas se quiser algo, por exemplo, um pouco mais indexado, gestão indexada, é isso. E a expectativa, obviamente, depende do risco.
E quando tu investes numa ação, tu investes porquê? Pelo nome? Tu controlas, tu sabes o que é que está por trás da empresa? Não sabes?
Sim, eu faço a minha análise, tenho de fazer uma pequena avaliação intrínseca e depois, consoante os catalistas que eu acredito que possam vir a materializar-se.
Deixa-me fazer só mais uma pergunta, não estou aqui a esmiuçar. Se correr mal o teu investimento, tu estás preparado com um plano B ou não? Mas é um plano B. Mas isto é um exemplo. Ou seja, muitos dos jovens com quem eu vou falando investem em títulos porque alguém lhes diz que os títulos são bons. E basicamente não sabem o que está por trás do título. Por exemplo, Apple é uma ação. A Apple é uma ação boa. Ok, sem dúvida, tem vindo a crescer sempre. Mas porquê é que é uma ação boa? Porque eu tenho um iPhone. Mas vocês conhecem as contas, não conhecem? Se vocês não conhecem as contas, como é que vocês vão investir numa ação só porque dizem que é bom? O dizerem que é bom, naturalmente estão a depender da opinião de outra pessoa ou estão a depender daquilo que lhes aparece à frente. Portanto, não é devidamente fundamentado. E se vocês não fundamentarem os vossos investimentos, vocês vão ficar aflitos. Porque, no limite, se a ação que vocês escolhem cai 40% ou 50%, vocês não vão saber o que fazer. Se vocês tiverem noção do que têm em carteira, vocês têm um plano B, como eu disse, neste caso era vender, ou podia ser reforçar, ou podia ser outra coisa. Um ponto fundamental é que, ao longo da vida, as nossas mentes, a nossa ideia de investimento também vai mudando um pouco. Agora vou-vos falar um pouco do processo de investimento. Se calhar era nesta parte que vocês estavam à espera que eu vos fosse acrescentar alguma coisa, eu sei. Mas, basicamente, o que eu pus aqui, uma criança e a mãe. Alguém tem uma ideia porque é que eu pus esta imagem? Não sabem?
Porque assim como nós aprendemos a andar e isso dá-nos algum trabalho, demora algum tempo, investir é um processo igual. Dá trabalho e demora tempo e por isso deve-se investir devagarinho.
Sem dúvida. Tem a ver com isso. Ou seja, não só isso. Aparentemente, para as crianças, claro que elas não pensam nisso, mas é muito difícil começarem a andar. Chega a um ponto que elas devem pensar, vou desistir, já estou farto, vou-me gatinhar ou vou rastejar. O investimento é igual. Nós, quando começamos a investir, começamos a ler coisas, começamos a ter informação, mas chega a um ponto que já o nosso cérebro começa a dar a volta e aquilo já não está a fazer sentido, já é quase uma perda de tempo. E se não tivermos a resiliência necessária, nós não vamos conseguir definir o nosso processo de investimento. Nós não vamos conseguir tirar proveito daquilo que podemos tirar daqui a 20 anos. Porque, efetivamente, o processo de investimento é um processo longo, mas é um processo que nós vamos tirar proveito passados muitos anos. Ali, o vosso colega dizia que pode tirar proveito no curto prazo. Ok, pode-se tirar ali uma mais ou menos valia, mas se o processo estiver bem identificado, estiver bem criado para vocês, porque o que é bom para mim pode não ser bom para vocês, cada um tem o seu contexto pessoal, cada um tem os seus objetivos e, em função disso, cada um vai tomar as suas decisões. E uma criança é igual. Por um lado, demora tempo a crescer, demora tempo a começar a andar, e por outro, chega a um ponto em que começa efetivamente a estar preparada para andar, está equilibrada. O investimento é igual, vocês têm que ler muita informação, absorver informação e chega um momento em que vocês já começam a perceber, já tenho um equilíbrio, se calhar já posso dar um passo, já posso começar a investir em alguma coisa, já posso ir mais além, devagarinho. Porquê? Porque mesmo depois que começarmos a andar, e as crianças começam a andar, nós sabemos que não vai ser sempre direito. Há de haver momentos que vamos dar trambolhões. As crianças dão trambolhões, nós também damos trambolhões a andar às vezes, ou a correr, e nos investimentos é igual. Então, nós já temos um equilíbrio, já sabemos algo, mas não sabemos tudo. Estamos constantemente a aprender. E outro ponto fundamental é que nós começamos a andar e andamos a vida toda. Mas há um limite, há um momento em que nós corremos muito, em que nós temos uma potência física brutal. Mas quando já estamos mais velhos, a verdade é que a nossa capacidade começa a diminuir novamente. Isto também tem a ver com o investimento. E por isso é que eu digo que vocês devem começar o investimento hoje, pensar o investimento hoje. Porquê? Porque se vocês começarem hoje, vocês podem ter muito mais risco na vossa vida, porque vocês vão olhar hoje para daqui a 20 anos. Mas daqui a 20 anos, quando tiverem 40 ou 50 anos, se calhar o tempo que vocês têm pela frente vai ser menor. Portanto, o risco que vocês vão querer correr vai ser mais reduzido. Isto é mesmo como andar. Começamos a andar, corremos, depois de repente já mais devagarinho. O investimento é igual. Hoje, vocês podem arriscar mais, podem errar. Aos 40, 50 anos, a margem de erro tem que ser muito menor. E, portanto, desse ponto de vista, por isso é que eu criei aqui esta junção, este paralelismo entre o andar e o investimento, porque, naturalmente, há aqui algumas semelhanças e, muito mais do que vos dizer onde é que vocês vão investir, eu quero lançar-vos o alerta de darem esse passo. Não há especialistas, não há gurus no investimento, isso não existe, pelo menos para mim. Se houvesse gurus no investimento, eles não trabalhavam, eles pegavam no seu património e investiam só para eles. Portanto, há pessoas que têm mais competência, há pessoas que dominam, se calhar têm mais inside information do que outras, que têm depois também mais conhecimentos, que é algo também que é fundamental. Durante a vida nós conhecemos muitas pessoas, nós damos uns com os outros, porque é isso também que nos vai fazer crescer. Mas, acima de tudo, o processo de investimento é um processo demorado, é um processo difícil, exige muita resiliência, exige muita disciplina, exige muito trabalho. Porque no futebol dizia-me constantemente, o sucesso só está à frente do trabalho num sítio, que era o dicionário. Em tudo o resto, nós temos de trabalhar muito mais para chegar ao sucesso. E, portanto, desse ponto de vista, é fundamental que vocês tenham isso bem presente, que não é chegar e, de repente, vocês descobriram a pólvora e investem num título e esse título vai valorizar 200%, até pode acontecer, mas a probabilidade de que isso aconteça muitas vezes é muito baixa. Por fim, dou-vos aqui um exemplo, não é o meu, infelizmente, mas acho que é um bom exemplo, que junta tudo aquilo que eu estive aqui a falar. Junta os valores, junta um plano, junta um objetivo. Não sei se vocês ouviram a Rita Pissarra, ela deu já várias entrevistas, esteve num podcast, reformou-se aos 43 anos. Basicamente, como é que ela se reformou aos 43 anos? Ela definiu um plano. E o plano dela passou por... Teve duas fases. Primeiro, teve o contexto pessoal dela, que a obrigou a ter um plano. Qual foi o contexto? Os pais dela morreram cedo e ela não queria deixar de viver aquilo que os pais não viveram ou queriam viver no futuro. Então, definiu um plano de forma a que conseguisse reformar cedo. E o plano passou por quê? Numa primeira fase, trabalho. Muito trabalho, muita dedicação, muita disciplina, muita racionalidade, que é o que ela fez. Andou por 4 países, trabalhou, deu litro, conseguiu receber dinheiro, conseguiu ter mais rendimentos de forma a aplicar. Mas depois só se conseguiu reformar aos 43 anos, porquê? Porque ela já tinha as competências para poder investir. Porque se ela tivesse ficado com o dinheiro todo no banco, ela não ia se conseguir reformar aos 43 anos. Só que ao longo do seu tempo, do plano que ela definiu de carreira, ela definiu também a meta de saída. Mas a meta de saída coincidia também com os investimentos que ela foi fazendo. Ela investiu em imobiliário, investiu em ativos imobiliários, em ações, etc., obrigações. Fez uma diversificação grande e, neste momento, é alguém que, aos 43 anos, pode viver a sua vida, o que é fantástico. Eu também tenho 43 anos e gostava já de estar reformado. Gosto de trabalhar, é verdade, mas ter a liberdade de ter tempo. O bem, se calhar, mais escasso e mais valioso, que muitas vezes nós não damos valor, é o tempo, porque o tempo passa num instante. Ainda do outro dia eu tinha a vossa idade e hoje já sou um quarentão, digamos assim. Portanto, acho que a Rita Pissarra é um exemplo de que é possível, mas é possível com muita disciplina, com muita dedicação, com muito trabalho, com muita racionalidade. E a racionalidade é fundamental, porque vocês têm que se manter fiéis ao vosso plano, têm que, ao mesmo tempo, adquirir competências e conhecimentos, de forma a depois poderem tomar as decisões com responsabilidade, e são decisões que, naturalmente, vão influenciar a vossa vida e vão fazer com que vocês se sintam muito mais felizes. Por isso é que eu dizia ao Diogo, que estivesse aí sentado, começa a investir hoje, porque daqui a 20 anos vai estar muito mais feliz. O Diogo esteve aí sentado, não começou a investir há 20 anos. Porquê? Porque também, se calhar, ninguém lhe disse isso com esta convicção. Também porque nós bebemos muito daquilo que são os nossos pais, os nossos avós, e a verdade é que em Portugal a literacia financeira é reduzida. A minha avó dizia: o dinheiro não é de quem o gasta, é de quem o poupa. É verdade, mas nós podemos arranjar formas de o poupar e de o colocar, de pôr a trabalhar o dinheiro de forma a que a poupança vá crescendo. Volto a dizer sempre com risco, é verdade, mas a pergunta era investimento, risco ou oportunidade. Claramente é uma oportunidade. Tudo o que nós fazemos na vida tem um risco. Para mim também é um risco estar aqui. Podia ter corrido muito mal. Acho que correu muito bem, mas podia ter corrido muito mal, porque tudo o que fazemos claramente é um risco e, acima de tudo, nós é que temos que controlar o risco e temos que assumir a responsabilidade quando as coisas correm mal. Porque se assumimos essa responsabilidade, naturalmente que estamos preparados para dar a volta e para crescer e para voltar cada vez mais fortes. Obrigado.
So I think it's our turn. Hi everybody, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Santa Clara. I'm a professor of finance here, and I've done a few other things in my life, but actually I think I followed Diogo's advice retrospectively, and I started investing when I was 19, so I guess I was on time on that. And actually let me try to give you the kind of advice that I wish I had at that time. And I'm going to make it incredibly simple. So you really don't have to study or work hard or actually figure anything out, because it is simple. You know, essentially, there's two kinds of capital that you have. You have human capital, that is, have you had finance already? If I say present value, that's okay? So human capital, the present value of all the income from working through the rest of your life, okay? So right now you're at the beginning, you have a ton of human capital, okay? When you get to 65, and if you're not as lucky as our previous example, when you retire, how much human capital will you have? 0, right? So your human capital goes from a ton. Actually, it's an interesting exercise trying to figure out what's the value of your human capital today. You have to figure out what wages you're going to get, what the proper discount rate, what not. And in the beginning of your life also, most likely you have 0 financial capital, unless you've already inherited something, but most likely have close to 0 financial capital. So you start out like this. And as you go through your life, your human capital is going to go down, and hopefully your financial capital will compensate that, so that when you get to the end of your working life, you have money in the bank. Now, the reason I say hopefully is that the value of your financial capital throughout your life is going to depend on 2 crucial decisions, which is how much you save. Are you going to save 5% of your yearly income, 10% of your yearly income, 20% of your yearly income? Saving is hard, by the way. Saving means not eating that chocolate, or not drinking that coffee, or not buying the latest iPhone or whatever. So the first thing is how much you save. The second thing is how you invest it. Are you going to put it in the bank? Are you going to buy stocks? What are you going to do? Are you going to buy crypto because it's a fad? How are you going to do it? The nice thing, and I'm going to move to you guys in a second, but it's been so long since I teach a class that I really want to take advantage of this audience here. But to make it very simple, there's actually 3 amazing principles in finance that help us out. The first is compounding interest. Compounding interest, that means that if you're saving, you're going to get the returns on the returns on the returns. So if you were to save 1,000 euros this year, 40 years from now, and you invest it in stocks, 40 years from now, you'll probably have around 10,000 euros adjusting for inflation. So in real terms, 10 times more. Meaning, if I don't buy my iPhone today, I'll be able to buy 10 iPhones when I retire. That's actually an incredible rate of return. This is what we've seen in financial markets for the last century. If things go on in the future more or less like they have in the past, that's what we could expect. The second thing, actually the second and third things together are efficient markets and equilibrium. Two notions very dear to our hearts as economists. Efficient markets mean that all the information that is available in the world is taken into account when setting the price of financial assets. You know, there's a lot of very smart people like you around the world buying and selling, and looking at everything, the company accounts, the analyst reports, the industry, whatever, the trends, what's AI going to do to these industry. All of that is going to be taken into account when setting the price. And this is the most liberating notion in the world, because it says you don't have to do your homework. Somebody has done your homework for you. That's pretty neat. Okay? On top of that, there's institutions like CMVM that make sure that the game is not rigged, that you're playing a fair game, that there's nobody that knows more than you that's buying and selling from you. Okay? So efficient markets. The second notion that's pretty cool is equilibrium. Equilibrium says that the average investor holds a portfolio of stocks in the proportion that they exist in the world, in the proportion of their market caps, market capitalizations. So if you're not that far different from the average investor, which my guess is you're not, you will do pretty well if you buy what the average investor has, which is the market portfolio. Now, the market portfolio is a theoretical construct, but if you look at something like the MSCI World Index, that's a pretty good proxy for the market portfolio. And the fortunate thing is that there are very low-cost funds that allow you to invest in the market portfolio. So, after 40 years of studying these things and investing in markets and stuff like that, I'm going to do the simplest advice to you, which is once a year or once a month, whatever, you choose how much you're going to save, and you invest in an ETF, which is one of these low-cost funds, on the MSCI World. And that's it. It is easy. And I'll tell you one thing. I know money managers over time and around the world. And this is incredibly hard to beat. You know, find me an active money manager that can beat the MSCI World in consistently over time. I am not saying 1 or 2 years. And I'll give you a chocolate bar. Very, very simple. And to me, the reason I'm stressing all these is that, first, this is going to make a huge impact in your life. You know, taking care of your financial health is probably as important as taking care of your physical health, also because the two are correlated. You know, if you have more financial wealth, you typically end up with more physical health. So it's very, very important. But the bottom line is that this is simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't require financial advice and money managers and you having to learn about the markets and following the markets. Forget about it. In fact, if you look at it once a year, I think so much the better. So this was my intro. Hopefully the CMVM agrees with me. I don't know, who wants to start?
This took me back.
Huh?
This took me back.
Was it okay, what I said?
Oh yes, of course. I think we actually needed a spoiler alert because you actually covered some of the points I wanted
that's good.
to address later. But yeah, I think I can start just to stress what you said, and also Diogo before, about the importance of starting investing early. And people who are here, who are going to start their work career soon, are in fact, like you said, they don't have as much financial capital, but they have a lot of human, and in other terms, they have a lot of time on their hands. And time with compound interest can be a very powerful force. And I actually brought, it's just one slide, but I actually brought a small graph because I think even for people who are in the finance field, sometimes this seems counterintuitive at this point. Is that, imagine a scenario, the blue line is someone that starts investing 1,000 euros each year for 10 years. They start at 25 and they stop investing at 35. And they just let the investments roll. And the orange line is someone who only starts investing at 35, but then invests 1,000 euros each year. And he never catches up to the blue line. So the first 10,000 years that started 10,000 euros that started early, if you wanted to catch up, you would have to invest much more money later. So this is the power of compound interest, because here you only invested for 10 years. Of course, you can say, okay, but later I will have more money. Okay, that's good. If you have more money, the lines go up. But the logic is the same. As soon as you can get started, the better. So that's just to illustrate what he was saying, and also Diogo was saying before that starting early is a great idea. Give your money more time to work for you. Let's put it like that. And this is supposing a 7% yearly return, equivalent to 7% yearly return, which is not too much. If you focus on stocks, maybe you can go up to 10%. It depends, of course, on the indexes, but I don't think it's too much to say if a totally on stock investment can go like that over time. And
well,
maybe
it will actually go like these.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying equivalent too, of course. Can depend on the starting point, but I think long term, I think the long-term return of the S&P 500 since inception is around 11%, so take it as you will. Another point I would also like to stress is that simplicity works. In fact, strategy of really investing in the low-cost index trackers, it's really, really hard to beat for money managers and for other kind of strategies. And if you're not an expert, what many people happened to me, when you start, you think you already know a lot because you studied finance, and then you start trading a lot and you get terrible results. I'm not even, you're not even going to get close to probably to the market index. So if you keep it simple.
Actually, can I give you an example that I was thinking of the other day that I thought would be very cool? So if we try to manage portfolios of individual securities, and you were giving the example of owning Apple stock. Just so you realize how difficult it would be mentally to imagine that you were able to buy Apple stock 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Apple was very, very low. This was before the return of Steve Jobs, before the iPhone, and so on. Since then, Apple has gone up by 10,000 times. So imagine that you had invested 1,000 euros in Apple stock, now you would have 10 million. But you wouldn't, because nobody would be capable of holding on to such a win. After it had gone up by 2 or 3 times, you would say, let me cash in some of the chips. Yeah. Let me put that aside. Let me lower my holdings. One of the beauties of buying a market index is that it's buy and hold for you. You don't have to make that decision. And honestly, nobody is capable of taking that decision. Even the most hardened money manager in the world would sell after it's gone up by 2 or 3 times, exactly. Let alone 10,000 times. But sorry,
Yeah, no, but that's completely true, and also because we have biases that turn the other way around. We tend to hang on to our losers and sell our winners early. There's no Wall Street saying it's cut the profits and cut the losses and let the profits run. So sell early if you are losing. Of course, you have to understand why you invested in the first place, but then try to hang on to your winners, because people usually do the opposite. You try to hang on to the stocks where you are losing money, trying to get it back, when maybe it's not a good investment anymore, and you sell too early when you have some gains, and maybe you miss out on even larger gains. Yeah, so I think what we could also say, I also want to focus how can CMVM help you when you are starting to invest. First of all, you have to invest through someone, and unfortunately there are sometimes less scrupulous, dishonest brokers on the market, and at CMVM you can, in our site you can check the financial intermediaries which are authorized to operate in Portugal. So it's a quick way to see, especially when you see advertisement on social media, if that is a legitimate offer. And also we also have cost comparison tools, so you can check for example, for trading in the stock market, where are the easiest, the lower costs and charges. So that is one way CMVM can help you. Yeah, just one thing, one note about risk, because I see sometimes a lot of people, even in the finance area, I think it's fair to say that Portuguese tend to be more risk averse than the average in other European countries. And a lot of people, they see risk as all or nothing. They say, okay, risk investments are not for me. But it's not like that. It's how much risk you can take. I mean, can't you risk 10 euros, 100 euros, 1,000? It depends on your portfolio, but 5%, 10%, 20%, especially if you are young. You should really look into risk investments. Of course, they have to be adequate to your profile. You have to have something which lets you sleep at night and you won't rush to sell at the first drop of the market. But really try to see, be rational about risk and see it in terms of your portfolio. Because a lot of people, I want to believe finance students and economy students will have another view, but a lot of people still reject risk outright, and like that you will never go far, as Diogo said and as Professor Santa Clara said, because you can probably you won't even keep up with inflation, which is not desirable.
I actually
Again, the advice stands, right?
The advice stands. It's
find an ETF on the MSCI World portfolio, buy, and
the KISS
don't
principle.
look at it
Keep
too
simple.
much.
Yeah.
But the keeping it simple really matters, because you mentioned that the Portuguese are more risk averse. I'm always reluctant to talk about sort of fundamental differences among people. Is it in the DNA, or is it, what is it? Why are Portuguese people more risk averse? In fact, I think they're more ignorant, which is a different thing. And definitely there's no culture of stock market investment in the country.
That's true.
There's a culture of investing in bank deposits, which, as you said, now have a negative real interest rate, so allows the investment for you to make. These I can believe in, but this is also where you guys can have a role, because trying to increase the financial literacy of the country is very, very important. But in order to do that, you have to keep it simple. You can't have to see, you can't be able to say, look, in order to invest in the stock market, you need to learn accounting, you need to learn statistics in order to understand risk. You don't. It's much, much, much simpler than all that. It is literally buy and hold one type of asset that represents all the assets in the world, period. And then if you want to make it fancy, you can. But the basic dish is very, very simple. Telma.
I actually would like to ask the audience one question. It's actually a question from one of my students, and I thought it would be a good start. So just imagine that you have a trading app on your phone and that you are buying a CFD. You are sending the order. Please raise your hands if you think that you're sending the order, because there are just two options. Either you're sending the order to a regulated market or to a non-regulated market. So please raise your hand if you think that you're sending the order for a non-regulated market. Okay, that's curious.
See, this is the kind of question. It's nice for you to know how to answer if you're a finance major. Otherwise, you don't care, right? Just do what I say.
Just one person, please raise your hand out of curiosity. Just one, please. One person raised the hand. Okay, thank you. You are correct. Just to say this, because actually what I would like to explain a little bit is the differences between regulated and non-regulated markets, because I think it's very important when you are choosing your stocks, if you're not already chosen, okay? But if you are choosing and you have an investor profile and you are choosing, okay, so what do I want to invest? And you have, just for a little bit of context, the CMVM supervises 5 markets. 3 of them are regulated markets, and 2 of them are multilateral trading facilities managed by Euronext. And if you are trying, you know your profile, you know that, for example, you really value to have lots of information. Just be aware that, for example, if you pick a stock that is from an issuer that is on a non-regulated market, for example, a multilateral trading facility, you will have probably and most likely less information. For example, you will not have with so many disclosure of financial reports. You will probably have only financial report annually, 1 per year, not semi-annual financial reports. Another thing is liquidity. For example, if you are an investor who actually likes a lot to have liquidity and you actually want to be quick to transform your assets into cash, one thing that you will probably value is free float. And the highest free float rates are found on regulated markets. So this is just an example. I'm not saying that there are better markets or worse markets, but they have different characteristics. And this is what you need to know as a first-time investor, okay? So find those characteristics, actually think about what you value and just match the two, okay? And just to sum up, if you think about the differences between a regulated market and a non-regulated market, in non-regulated markets you have just 3 or 4 characteristics. You have lower liquidity, less transparency, you actually have higher risks, and you have more flexibility in terms of contracts. But this is just one point to understand, because you will have to make those choices. Other things are, what do I choose in terms of products? Because we have been talking about markets, what about products? We have been talking a little bit about the products. I don't like to say that there is a forbidden product. I don't like that narrative, but I will say this, and it's a little bit the same message that was already sent to you. You really need to learn how to fly before you leave your nest, otherwise you're going to crash down. Why? Because you're going to be exposed to a very exciting world, okay? The trading world is very exciting, but you are going to face lots of new concepts. You are going to learn how to make an order. You are going to learn how the price actually enters into the stock exchange. I just remember one thing. When you're placing your order, do you think that the order goes to your broker or directly to the stock exchange? Raise your hand if you think it's going for the broker. Exactly. But this is something that my students actually asked me, because they were under the impression that once it happens also quickly, that once they were sending the order on their cell phone, they were already able to see them on the screens of the stock exchange. So they were under the impression that the order would go directly, but it does not go directly. You need to have a broker, and the broker has pre-trade filters. They are going to monitor your order. Most of the times it's almost automatically, but there are some things that are happening here. And one advice that I usually go for my students is the following. Choose a broker with a demo account, because you are going to make some mistakes. And in a demo account, you can do them in a test environment. So it's very good for you to understand these little things before it gets real and you actually use your money. Another thing that I usually...
Sure. Can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask a question. Who here can drive a car? Okay, who here knows how an electronic injection system works? Okay, so there's 2 ways. So And the point that I want to make, the one that I think is important and valid for 99.9% of the population is you do not need to understand how electronic injection works in order to drive a car. Now, if for any reason you're a car maniac or you want to be a race course driver or something, then you will have to understand it. But most of us don't. In fact, some of us may not even know exactly how you open the hood of the car or how you switch a tire or something like that. And you don't have to. The really important lessons is that, first, investing in stocks is very, very important in the long run because it's the asset class that has the long-term real returns that are highest. So it matters very much for your retirement, for your whatever purchases that you want to do later in life. The idea of market efficiency is also incredible because it says somebody is doing the work for you. And if we're looking at very big assets, I mean, like, what's the hope, honestly? What's the hope that by studying the accounting data of Apple, you'll be able to find something that all the biggest, most sophisticated asset managers in the world have not found? I mean, do you really think Apple must be followed by more than 1,000 analysts of all the investment banks, all the brokers, everybody in the world? Everybody's listening in on their phone calls and looking at the most minute information, you know. Did he sell some of his holdings? Did he, you know, was there a surprise in the last announcement? What are the accruals versus cash flow? People will look at everything. But this is great news for you. It means it's not like going to play a poker at a table where you're not sure if the other whether the deck is rigged. You're going into a house that's very safe, in part because of CMVM and other agencies around the world. And you can say, look, I'm just going to buy the market. You know, don't bother me with anything. The most amazing thing of all is that even the guys who know about electronic injection will not beat you at the game. And if anything, this should be a very sobering remark for any active money manager in the world, because very few of them can do this.
But that's the beauty of price formation, because
I agree.
Every time you have someone buying, you have someone believing the
I agree,
other thing of you.
I'm just saying that from the point of view of the user, you don't need even to know what a broker is. you know, just open an account and say, can I buy an ETF on the MSCI World? Yes, please. You don't have to say anything else. Huh?
You should be sure that the broker is legal and registered
At the CMVM.
Right.
Yeah, go check.
You know, I would think that common sense would lead people to, you know, if
There's
it's
a lot of
if
non-common sense.
if there's a
And
guy on
very
this
aggressive
on a
advertising.
street asking if you know you want to buy Coke or some shares, don't go there. You know, go to.
Or if they're saying that they are already billionaires and they have it all, just.
Yeah, but again, if you go for this, those guys will not try to sell you the simple stuff, right? Those guys will try to sell you, oh, you know, and there's these.
Yeah, they tend to go for the fads and that kind of.
You know, and
Exactly.
Bitcoin and whatever that. You had a question. Yeah, I was opening these two questions, by the way. So whoever has a question.
Just a comment. You were saying that you don't need to know how the engine works, but you need to have driving classes before you drive the car. That's why the demo example that Telma tells and all the information that you can get can be useful for you to be more secure.
But learning how to.
Probably not with the market index, but when you choose different stocks.
Don't do that. You know, it's very simple. But the point is, let's make these so stupidly simple that if you don't follow the advice, you're stupid. right? You know, don't go buy individual stocks. That's a fool's game. You know, don't go buy crypto assets. That's a fuller game. You know, that's a total stupid game. Buy the market.
Yeah.
There's sound theory and empirical results for that. And I can tell you because I've done some of it.
Yeah.
It's the best advice you'll ever get.
Yes, it's really free. But
And it's free.
But there's still a few tweaks, like they said. So choosing a broker to minimize costs, choosing what kind of ETFs.
An ETF, low cost.
Yeah, but just the American market also, or
No,
other foreign
MSCI
market?
World.
MSCI World. Okay, that's a
You're
good
going,
one.
you're going to be
I gave you the complete advice. Huh?
Okay, so
Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
My question is about ethics, because when we are investing, that's a powerful thing to do. Our money has consequences on the world. How do we take that into account? How do we choose which ETF in which to invest, considering all the implications that those thousands of companies might have and that we cannot control, and that maybe even if we do a lot of research, we won't find what are those companies' policies in terms of human rights, sustainability, and all that stuff.
Can I, please?
yeah, I mean, if we could
So,
also do it. Yeah.
First, your money will have absolutely zero impact. You know, it's not even an epsilon, it's nothing. Unless, not even if you're Elon Musk, really at the scale of the world cap. So realistically, it has zero impact. Now, on top of these, I want to, it reminds me a few years back, there was a mutual fund in the US that was called the Vice Fund. It was called the Vice Fund because it only invested in gambling, guns, all the nasty industries around the world. On the reverse premise of what he wanted, saying, well, there's going to be, what's your name? So their premise was there's going to be a lot of investors like Rita, and so these assets will be undervalued and we're going to buy them. See, I really don't think that your money will have consequences in that aspect. You're better off investing well and then getting the money and using the money to be to have an impact in whatever areas you want than trying to figure out stocks like how can you? You know, what's the environmental impact of any company in the world? They can't compete in themselves, let alone
But still,
us.
I'm sorry, but I would just like to add, but what you said is true, especially in terms of scale, but in the last few years we have had, at CMVM we are doing great efforts because there are actually rules for investments to be graded on sustainability, and actually our department, the Market Conduct Department, has done a lot of work on that here in Portugal, and to prevent greenwashing, which is companies trying to pass off as green investment or socially responsible investments, and then they aren't. You already have, and the coverage should increase rapidly about companies, maybe funds, companies funds also, which have. Actually, there are two main categories. They are using it to fund ESG investments, or they just respect practices. I mean, they don't invest in those kind of areas.
I doubt it. I mean, what's better, Tesla or Exxon? Which one is better from an environmental impact?
No, but
there's no way to measure it. Anyways, my advice. Forget that. Instead of dedicating your time to picking stocks where you will not have an impact on the price, dedicate your time to go be an activist, go do something productive.
Isn't that a little bit confusing and hypocrite? Because
no.
Me as a consumer, I have a power to choose what product I buy. For instance, I don't like to buy Shein products because I know that the company's policy is really bad in terms of human.
Which company?
Shein it's a clothing fast fashion brand.
Okay.
I don't also want to be putting my money into that company as an investor. So I think that as we have power as consumers, we also have power as investors. And
Sure.
for little it can be, it is very, very little. But if we all together.
No, but let me make one remark that may not be clear here. When you buy stocks, you're not putting any money into the company. You're just buying the stock from another investor. So the money only goes into the company if there's an initial public offering, if there's if the company is raising capital. When you're buying and selling stocks, you're not putting money into the company. I think this is important. And you
increasing the value of that company, right?
well, this is where I doubt it, but maybe you have many billions of dollars unbeknownst to me, and you can have an impact. But I was thinking perhaps at my scale that you don't have any impact, but maybe it's me.
Maybe.
But anyway.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time, but maybe just
João just want to say something, and then
a situation.
Yeah, we'll get out of your way.
We also have sustainability indexes at the moment, where companies that are in those indexes comply with sustainability factors. So maybe there's ETFs over these kind of indexes, and it may help what you're going to invest with. João,
Sure.
sorry.
Just a small comment. I think the question is not how each one makes his investments, how will be her investment, is how investments will be done by everyone. So it's not just one decision, it's multiple decisions at the same time. And people have the opportunity to change how companies are managed, not just on personal level, of course, but if there is certain tendency and certain way of investment regarding everyone, or at least a big part of the investors, that can make an impact.
I understand. I disagree, but we can agree to disagree.
30 seconds.
Okay.
If, let's say that 90% or 95% of the people invest in ETFs, how the markets will evolve? I mean, because if everyone is investing in ETFs, there will be no more
Price discovery.
Yeah.
Well, because at that point there will be incentives enough for a few professional investors to dedicate their time and money to finding. It's not a point. That incentive exists. If you think you can have a 0.1% edge from looking at publicly available information, then you would be so wealthy that the incentive is always there. So I don't think you'll ever get there. There will always be active investors. The beauty is that everybody else can piggyback right on them.
okay.
Well, I'm going to cut it off. Thank you very much, Telma and André.
Okay. We're going to start now with the third part of our program, the Enzo case. While João is being mic'd up, I have a few notes for you. The first note in housekeeping is after this session, because you know we are rushing through teams, we can invite you for a glass of beer or Coke or whatever. So we'll be staying here and you can ask us more questions because there will be a little bit more time. So that's housekeeping rule. The second thing I would like to say is that we'll be discussing the Enzo case or the Enzo Fernandes transfer, because it's an example, and also because that was a specific request. By the university from the investment club. But we need to say that despite our own likings and what we like as human beings, CMVM is the regulator of all of the Portuguese SATs, meaning that what we are about to tell you, what happened with the Enzo Fernandes transfer, would have, in terms of procedure, would have been similar to any other case in any other footballer in any other club. meaning our job is to, as João will explain, what are procedures, and we are talking here a lot, we will be talking here about Benfica. There's nothing wrong with that, and but it's important to state that lightings aside, we are everyone's regulator, okay? So we'll start on the Enzo case. João, thank you for being here. You work directly on this. And can you please tell us what happened in the Enzo Fernandez transfer and how it affected Benfica shares, starting?
I don't know if you hear me.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I think
perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very sensitive topic, yes, for certain Benfica fans. I know that. You are still trying to deal with the trauma of losing Enzo Fernandez. But yeah, basically, Enzo was for those who don't know Enzo Fernandez and what's the fuzz with Enzo, what happened. Yeah, basically Enzo was or is a midfielder. He was playing for Benfica last year, and at a certain point he was the best player of the team. And what Benfica did, sold him and replaced him by Chiquinho. I don't know if you know, yeah, on the starting 11. And the problem was that Benfica was and received also 120 million euros for the transfer. So this was the major transfer ever in the Portuguese transfer market. I think it was the 6th highest transfer ever in the football history. It was the most expensive midfielder ever, and we are talking about not a Portuguese player, but a player playing on the Portuguese league. So it was major. The question is how this has to do with finance and with capital markets. Well, Benfica is a public company, which means that the shares of Benfica, not the club, but the SAD, well, for this purpose is irrelevant. But the shares of Benfica are traded in the market. Also some bond lines, but especially the shares are traded in the market, so every day you can buy and sell the shares of Benfica. And the point is that the moment information regarding the possible transfer of Enzo Fernandez hit the market, the moment the information hit the internet, basically, because there wasn't yet official information regarding the transfer, let's say that the shares started to behave a little bit like a roller coaster in a theme park. So there was some people that were holding tight, just waiting for what will happen. Others were trying to sell because they were thinking that probably the value of Benfica will decrease because he was really important for the team. Others were expecting that 20 million will make a huge impact on Benfica's financials, so they were trying to sell, thinking that the price will increase because of the massive money that Benfica will receive. So it was like when there were no information, it was like a penalty shootout, so we didn't know what was going to happen. And he was actually sold, and the company is increased more or less. If we see the moment where the first news hit the market and when the official communication to the market happened, the shares increased almost 10%. So this shows that information is very important. So timely information and official information to be disclosed timely and comprehensively is very important for the investors to make decisions instead of invest or be confident regarding rumors or Twitters or etc. So that was the punchline here. Information is very important for investors, including in this case.
Okay, so can you briefly explain what was our role during this transfer? So as you explained, Benfica decided to sell Enzo. You know, that looks like a football-y decision, but we had a role to play. And why is the role we play important in situations similar to this?
Yeah, basically our role was similar to our major transfers in the past. So as I told you, we try to guarantee two things. So one, that the important information, let's say material information regarding the issuers, including football clubs, are disclosed to the market as quick as possible. When the deal is done, the clubs or the SADs need to as soon as possible, communicate or disclose the information to the market. The other thing is that it's not just communicate information. You need to have the right information and the complete information, so as to the investors understand what's happening and invest according to the information. So in this case, we basically keep on track of the negotiations along with Benfica during the period until the transfer was finished. So we had a role knowing and articulating with Benfica, knowing what was happening. And when the information was disclosed, we thought to assure that all the information needed was disclosed. Basically the price, which was very important. How much will go to River Plate, because there was a percentage of the money that, accordingly to previously commitments, needed to be delivered to the River Plate, which was the formerly club, the previous club of Offenses. Who will going to pay the solidarity mechanism? How much has been paid to intermediaries? Normally it's 10%. It depends on the case. Clubs need to disclose this to the market when they disclose the details of the transfers. But I'd like to highlight this. Our rule regarding clubs and regarding other companies that are in the market is not just supervise if the information has been disclosed and how it has been disclosed, but also approving certain types of transactions. For example, the football clubs, basically all years they issue bonds, so we also have a rule approving certain documents relating to the bonds issuances. And we supervise the football clubs, both in terms of information and certain documents regarding issuances. But this is just, I'd like to highlight this because this is very important, because normally CMVM is very related, including by the media, with football clubs, but this is just a small portion or a small fraction of what we do, okay? As you know, there are a lot of companies in the Portuguese market. Most of the big companies like EDP, SMAP, Sonai, name it. The big Portuguese companies are public companies, so we also supervise them in the same terms. Sometimes what we do doesn't have the same impact, at least for the media, comparing to what we do in relation to the football clubs, but this is just a small fraction of what we do there in CMVM.
Okay, I just noticed that we are in the wrong chairs because I'm interviewing you and I'm sitting in the sofa, okay? So let's proceed. Can you tell us now, as you explained that, yes, we deal and we supervise and the SADs, but we also do that for the remaining companies. But I'd like you to talk a little bit on how companies that are not yet public, so they are not in the stock exchange, can you elaborate a little bit on how other companies can use capital markets to get financing versus bank financing, which is the model most companies tend to follow in Portugal, and in fact we have a low ratio of companies getting their financing from capital markets versus some other markets, namely the US market, but also European markets. I believe there's a graph. I was meant to do it, and I didn't do. This is Enzo. So here you have recent data on the stock market capitalization to GDP ratio in selected markets. The US is not here, obviously the US is a major market. But can you tell us briefly, because we don't have a lot of time, how companies can get money from capital markets? How do they do? And why is that beneficial to just going to the banks and asking for financing?
Yeah, I would say that there are two different options, capital markets and the banking system. Obviously, they have different rules and they can adapt to, let's say, the financial needs of each company. For certain companies, probably the bank is better, for others it's the capital markets. But yeah, I'm a suspect, but I would say that when we compare capital markets to the banking system, we are kind of comparing Lionel Messi to a bank manager, because the real action happens there in capital markets. So when the companies want to grow faster, if they want to go internationally, if they want to do an M&A transaction quickly, normally the best option is to go through the capital markets. This is a principle. Obviously, there are certain companies which tend to be more conservative in his business, don't want to deal with the public, don't want to deal with qualified investors. But that's the punchline. If you have a company, if you want to go and grow rapidly, if you want to deal with different stakeholders, if you want to accelerate your transition process in terms of ESG factors, probably the capital markets are the best options. When we compare USA and Europe, yeah, we have still a long track and a huge track to comparing to the USA. I would say that this has to do with cultural aspects. We have a stronger dependency, historical dependency on banks. There is also a problem that has been mentioned before. Europe tends to be more risk averse comparing to the USA. So companies normally like to speak directly to a bank manager, but they don't want normally to disclose certain information to the public. I would say that this is changing, especially on the field of what I call the private capital markets, which is basically venture capital, private equity, etc. This has been, let's say, booming in the last years, including in Portugal. The startup environment has helped it. So if we compare with what's happening in Portugal or in Europe in what regards venture capital and private equity, comparing to 10 years ago, it's really different. We are approaching more and more to the USA in what regards to these. Traditional capital markets or public capital markets, I won't say the same as you see on the graph, the percentage of GDP comparing to the importance of the capital markets, and this is regarding traditional capital markets, has been decreasing. We in CMVM are trying to, let's say, change these and implement certain initiatives, but what I like to highlight is that capital markets are very important to companies that want to grow fast. As I told you, bank system has its role, but we cannot forget capital markets, because even if you look from a public perspective, from public policy perspective, the capital markets are the ones that allow the general public to participate on the growth of the companies. They can invest directly on the companies, and they can receive part of the growth of the companies through the dividends and etc. So it's a way of be part of the growth of the companies. When you invest in the bank, well, you receive your interest, but let's say that the value added of your investment stays in the bank, not with you. So that's what I like to say regarding this matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would add that in the US, because you don't have a social scheme,
yeah,
and since you start working, you have to think about your retirement. As it in Europe, most countries, especially in Southern Europe, you have a social system behind you. So people are not trained and they are not educated in schools, at home, by the example of their family, to invest in order to prepare for their future, because they believe that it will be there. That is not the case in the US. So in the US, you are forced to start preparing yourself for the moment where you can no longer work.
Yeah, and just to add, this is the case of China. The capital markets in China is huge, and one of the reasons, is that
social.
Normally they like to gamble,
Yeah,
but that's not the main reason. Is because there is a small social welfare there. So people know that if they do not invest, they would have no retirement, and probably this is also changing in Europe, because we know that our social security system is not as strong as before due to demographics. So if I was in your age, yeah, I will invest, because probably you would have some restraints regarding your retirement in the future. So yeah.
Stepping aside from football and going to something that I think it is very important, which is the urgence of climate transition. I mean, we all discuss this endlessly. We are seeing the examples of this. This is 34 degrees in October. And there's a bad bug, whatever, in Paris. So there's a lot of strange things happening in the world. And there is a plan, and we have the technology to try to reverse what's happening. But there's a huge number attached to this endeavor. And a lot of this money would have to come from capital markets, because there's not enough public money to support the billions and billions of euros or dollars that will cost to do this climate transition. Can you, João, give us one or two examples of companies that in Portugal have used capital markets as a way to finance their projects in this particular area?
Yeah, before that, I would like to say that capital markets is actually the place where a company can accelerate in terms of ESG matters, because it's the quickest way to receive funds, for example, from green bonds or sustainable link notes. So it's the best way if you want to raise money and invest in green opportunities or other opportunities related to social or governance factors. It's easier to do it from the capital markets than from the banking system. So this is a very important role of the capital markets. In respect of what's happening specifically in Portugal, we have seen a lot of examples of companies that either have gone to the markets through an IPO process and have a business related to green matters. For example, Greenvolt, which is a producer of clean energy. So they've done an IPO 2 years ago, which was very successful. So from one side and from another side, we have been dealing with a lot of issuances from green bonds, from EDP, even Galp, EDPR. So there is activity here in Portugal regarding this. Just to put a number on this, if we look to Europe, in the last year, there have been issued almost 300 billion euros in terms of green bonds. So the market is, I won't say booming, but it's growing faster and faster. So once more, there's an opportunity in the capital markets for accelerate in terms of transition.
And an opportunity for
investors
who
of
believe that they can work or help in a certain case to invest in this company, doing obviously the proper due diligence. Because we're running out of time, João, from an investor's perspective, what it is important, what should the investor consider when he's deciding to invest in a public offer of bonds or shares? You mentioned the Greenvolt IPO recently, and where can reliable data be found?
Yeah, it's basically the same that has been said in the past. I mean, you should look to the information, you should do your analysis. Obviously, you can just invest on ETF, that's an option. But you can also look for certain products. For example, if you just want to, even for a fraction of your portfolio, you want to have green bonds, or you want other products related to ESG, you can do it. Just do it wisely. All the information regarding each product is available normally in the CMVM's website, or through your intermediary. They can provide you all the information that you need. You just need to ask. So I would say that do it wisely. Take your time. Don't rush. Take your time, but do your research and invest.
Do you have any questions?
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Actually, I have a question because we've mentioned how poor is our capitalization in terms of stock markets with respect to GDP. But in terms of football clubs, we have like 4 clubs that are publicly listed, which is something not very common, at least in terms of percentage, when we go outside of Portugal. Do you have an explanation for it? That's my first question. Thank you.
I think we need to look at the past and see that all the football clubs, they've done an IPO in early 2000s because they need money and they have a big fan base. So came to the conclusion that the best way to raise money was through the capital markets. These in terms of shares. In terms of bonds, and the same happens. We have, I would say, like almost a third of the bond issuances in Portugal from football clubs. And there's one reason for that. They don't, nowadays it's very difficult from the football clubs to get money from the banks. So they take advantage from a good sense, okay, from their fan base, and they try to have finance directly from the fan base. Because the other option, which is the banking system, basically it's very difficult at the time. Comparing to other countries, I think that the only exception could be Italy, because there are at least 3 or 4 clubs also that are listed in the market, and I think that the same happens. But the explanation is basically this: they knew that they had a fan base, so it's easy to raise capital, and it's very difficult for the football clubs to get financing from the banking system, so they tend to go to capital markets.
It's emotional investing.
Yeah, also.
Okay, I think we don't have time for more. I would close by saying, getting a little bit of, I'm looking at Diogo. I will say start investing, think about it, think about savings, because savings are very important. I think savings can make all the difference in a person's life, and curiously, they can also make a difference in a country's life. One of the problems Portugal has is that we do not have enough savings, which means that we are dependent in terms of investment when there is a problem in foreign loans and foreign money. So saving is a good thing. Saving is something you should consider from a young age, but your savings stopped in the bank or under the blanket is not going to work, so you should make your money work for it. And that's something you should be doing starting now, but using Diogo's slide. You read about it, you talk about it, you make your decisions slowly, one by one, trying, do I feel comfortable with this? One other thing I would say is also I've worked a bit with financial literacy, and I think we have a problem if you reflect upon yourselves and your families. In Portugal, we tend, or at least my generation, tended to be resistant to asking questions. When you go about looking at your investment, you do your due diligence, but if you're dealing with a broker, let's say, ask questions. And until you understand what's there, and until you feel comfortable, you don't invest. Thank you.